Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. South Korea's Hyundai Motor Group on Monday announced a sweeping $21 billion investment in the United States, including a new $5 billion steel plant in Louisiana through 2028. The plan includes investment for the automotive sector, the steel industry, and for future industries, and for the energy sector.
So Hyundai Motor entered the U.S. 1986. Since then, we have invested over $20 billion and now support more than 570,000 American jobs across all 15 states. Today, I'm pleased to announce an additional $21 billion in a new investment over the next 4 years, our largest U.S. invest ever.
The announcement comes as U.S. President Donald Trump signals potential 25% tariffs on imported cars starting April 2nd and broadens trade pressure on countries with large U.S. trade surpluses. Calling Hyundai a truly great company, the U.S. president expressed excitement.
Hyundai will be producing steel in America and making its cars in America, and as a result, they'll not have to pay any tariffs. You know, there are no tariffs if you make your product in America.
Monday's announcement made Hyundai the first South Korean company to unveil a major investment plan amid Trump's tariff threats, raising cautious hopes it could help ease U.S. trade pressure on Seoul. For a deeper discussion on the latest developments, we invite Song Soo-young, professor of business and economics at Chungang University. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you for inviting me.
And also joining us from Texas is Hwa-kyun Kim, professor of banking and finance at Texas A&M University's Mace Business School. Great to have you again, Professor.
Thank you for the invite.
So let's start with Professor Song. Like we've heard, Hyundai Motors announced a massive $21 billion investment in major sectors, including automobiles, parts, and steel through the next 3 years. Professor, tell us, what's the significance of this large-scale investment? And also, why did Chairman Chung specifically highlight steel plant construction as a core aspect of the investment?
Yeah, as an exporter, one of the largest auto vehicle exporter to the United States, Hyundai's recent announcement of the big investment in the steel plant in Louisiana, and accordingly, Hyundai already have some plan to invest an additional $21 billion, as Chairperson Chung has mentioned, but. From the Hyundai's perspective, this is to is an effort to shield itself from the U.S. tariff, clearly on the steel and cars. So this is necessarily a very reasonable response from Hyundai's perspective. On the other hand, actually, this step could help save the face of the Trump administration, particularly because of the tariff. The U.S. stocks S&P 500 have been dropped almost 7%, and actually, U.S. economy is many economists and many practitioners signaled warning of the potential stagflation looming for U.S. economy. So this is in both ways that this winning both type game, but. Whether it will be securely and sustained, we have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. So regarding this Chairman Chung's investment announcement, President Trump emphasized that it proves the effectiveness of the tariff policy, his tariff policy. Professor Kim, what has been the local response to this announcement? Saying.
So it could be divided into more from the political sectors or leaders and community stakeholders versus just the pure local reactions from comments in YouTube videos related to news articles and media, or general New York Times articles, comments, and stuff like that. So first, in terms of the political size, clearly we can see the strong excitement in optimism, as you somewhat mentioned, also from the President Trump side as well. So Louisiana governors or the House Speaker Mike Johnson, they obviously are very excited. And as Professor Song mentioned, it's more like a save the face for their arguments and also the political actions. Clearly, tariffs are like tax, basically. So it's going to have negative impacts on consumers. And there are a lot of pushbacks from economists and practitioners, and also even the political, the sides even within their own parties. So clearly, if this is used as more as a negotiating tool, then that's clearly a good thing. But if it's going more than that, and then for it's really, in action, then there will have some issues in the long term because it's going to increase the cost and lower the demand and possibly going to recession, I think. And then that's something that they really don't want. So clearly, in terms of the political side, they're very excited. In terms of the comments from the news articles and media, I can see some divide from both sides. Definitely those who support the Trump administration are very excited and they actually hail and just give like, oh, it's great news and things like that. On the other side, those others actually say with some skepticism, so it's a good news, but does it really have anything new other than Hyundai already makes cars in the U.S.? So I think there are some divisions.
So, while the administration is touting it as a validation, it seems reactions on the ground may be a little bit more complex on that front. Now, Hyundai's latest investment is seen as a very bold move to directly counter the Trump administration's tariff pressure. Professor Song, what lessons does this case offer to domestic companies and also the government in terms of resolving tariff-related issues?
From Korea's economy, Korea's perspective, some conglomerates such as Samsung and SK Hynix, they have already planned to make an investment under the Biden administration, and with the help of the subsidy provided at the end of the 2024. Now it is the Trump administration think of withdrawing or canceling all those subsidies. And in addition to that, the $1 exchange rate has surged against Korea. So that could have really big obstacles for the Korean conglomerates who would like to invest in the U.S. So what is the implication or lessons from the Hyundai's move? Then we have to take into account the effect of reciprocal tariff. That means the tariff is imposed simply because of balance of trade is in deficit in the U.S. They would like to, with the discretionary power, they levy a tariff on whatever their exports from South Korea to United States. So according to the types of good, balance of deficit U.S. has got is from the products include machinery, the largest deficit, and the electrical equipment, and next is vehicle and the pharmaceutical. So that means what kind of products or export goods become a target of tariff, and also then in order to push back the exporters from outside to the United States, actually the reciprocal tariff will be levied on whatever the products. So particularly the four types of goods are first the focus, and then it will be played out whatever the products. So then the clear lesson to domestic companies in South Korea is how the policy played out. They have to should not hastily hurry into making investment in U.S. That is a bad idea. Wait, and the persistence or the patience would pay in the future.
Right. So we'll have to see how the situation unfolds.
Right.
Now, Hyundai Motor, like we've heard, has only avoided the tariff pressure for its vehicles produced locally in the United States. So since Trump has announced that 25% tariffs will be imposed on all imported cars starting April 2nd, what kind of countermeasures should be considered in response?
Well, clearly the South Korean government should work, diligently and promptly to work with the U.S. government. And I think one of the important things to consider in this case is, at the end of the day, the South Korea and the U.S. have free trade agreement. So most of the tariff rates are already close to zero. So clearly there will be some other, of course, non-tariff or the the tax-related the obstacles. They're going to just the U.S. is going to just argue against the this type of the cases. So I think the important negotiation point is going to be the deficits versus the surplus kind of items. Clearly, the U.S. has more to say about the agricultural products and some of the other stuff, while the Korea probably has something else. So clearly there's some room for negotiation because of the product differentiations. But the part that they do have both, selling to each other, I think that one, it's basically like they have to either lower the tax together or just increase the tax. But given the FTA, again, it's probably going to be some just debates, but it's not going to make much progress. But I think at least for the products that are different, clearly there should be some negotiating points. From the corporate side, I think Hyundai is already doing, Hyundai Kia I think is doing already great. Only issue I think is also the smaller firms in Korea who supply the parts, I think, to both Hyundai Kia or also to the U.S. companies. I think that's the problem because they don't have that much bargaining chips or the resource. So for them, I think especially either the government or the Hyundai Kia probably want to have some doing deals so that this effect is going to be relatively mitigated at least. Given the uncertainty of this policy, even if it's going to be announced, how this is going to be planned out and then implemented, it's going to still under some uncertainty. So I think again, the wait and see is going to be an important issue, but it's very important to have good negotiations.
So the broader industry actually still faces challenges, especially those smaller ones without U.S.-based productions.
Definitely.
Now, following Hyundai, Professor Song, will major Korean companies like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix also accelerate investments in the U.S.? And given the uncertainty around receiving subsidies under the Biden administration's investment terms, further investments might be burdensome. What's your thoughts?
Clearly, that if the subsidy is withdrawn or canceled out, that is a really damage to the investment by Samsung and SK Hynix. So they have a plan to, SK Hynix, they are going to have a plan to build a chip packaging plant in Indiana with a $3.87 billion. And then the subsidy was promised to $450 million. So it's through the direct funding. And also Samsung is now, they build under construction of the foundry plant in Taylor in Texas, but this costs $17 billion. But the problem is as I mentioned earlier, one exchange rate because of a political turmoil in South Korea really turns out to be have a bad impact on some conglomerates investment in the U.S. So the reason why I told earlier that we have to, this tariff policy will be played out in the future, we have to wait, is the reason is because clearly political pressure will be mounted on the Trump administration. So they are in haste because to illustrate some kind of their achievement. However, it's not that easy because clearly the tariff effect in the short term could have very reduced the consumption and then they have to persist or they have to endure some kind of pains among the people. Right. So that is that will take a toll in political issues, and then Trump may change their policy.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Trump's potential change in policies, after Chung's announcement, President Trump said that not all new tariffs will be announced on April 2nd, and that some countries might also receive exemptions. This is a shift from his previous stance, of course. Do you think this could be interpreted as a sign of flexibility in his tariff approach, Professor Song?
Yeah, I think Trump is always, he's very notorious for changing his attitude or his posture or his plan and ideas with this, whatever the excuse will be provided. Therefore, actually, recently we have heard that 15 countries who has traded surplus against the United States. Among them is China, Mexico, Vietnam, Ireland, Germany, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, Canada, Thailand, India, Italy, Switzerland, Malaysia, Indonesia, France. So these countries are maybe listed, but however, when the political pressure within in the United States, then they must also experience some suffering and the pains because consumers they don't like the high increased price. And because of the tariff, the growth of the economy necessarily stopped. And so that is why I said, even though in order to avoid the direct impact, bad impact of tariff, that is clearly the Hyundai's current investment is good. But however, the other companies and some other small companies, rather than try to avoid and to appease Trump's current tariff policy, the best way is to choose the position of portfolio. So they changed some kind of a supply or export line, trade line with other countries. I think that would be a much better way.
Right, so you have to create your own strategy depending on your own situation. Now, meanwhile, President Trump has encouraged South Korea's participation in the Alaska LNG project. In relation to this, Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy visited Korea for discussions. Professor Kim, do you think Korea's participation in this project could become a bargaining chip to alleviate tariff pressure? And what could the Korean government consider before making a decision?
I mean, clearly, Korea's involvement in the Alaska LNG project could indeed serve as some potential bargaining chip in the U.S. And also, the South Korea has been using LNG widely, so I think it has good experience, I think. And also in terms of the construction and everything, I think it has some advantage. So I think actively participating in a major U.S. energy project, I think is a good thing overall, even without just tariff. And I think this can be a good way to signal its commitment to also bilateral economic cooperation with the U.S. Of course, before taking such a step, probably the Korean government want to consider a few things. One is clearly they have to do the benefit and cost analysis clearly. So what is the actual cost that they actually have to deal with? And so what is the net present value, and it is positive overall and things like that. So there must be some obstacles and issues. That's probably why if it is just a pure financing part of the issue, probably less so. But if there are some technical and technological issues, then I think the cost can actually double, triple. So that's something that the Korean government really wants to consider carefully with all the experts and economic analysts. Also, in terms of the domestic implications, I think maybe that should align well with the Korea's domestic energy policy, so that if somehow this clean energy like this kind of thing is more necessary, that can Korea actually get some import from the U.S. through this channel in a kind of cost-effective way. So at the same time, I think Korea also wants to benefit a little bit from this kind of thing, similar to other, the energy businesses that the Korea actually was dealing with in Middle Eastern countries and things like that. So overall, I think, yes, it's a good strategic thing. And I think this is a signal also the U.S. is probably sending. Like, I remember President Trump actually talking about this in his inaugural speech. So clearly this is going to be good signal that I think, okay, so this is a one bargaining part that you can talk with us or something.
So this energy cooperation could double as a diplomatic leverage, but clearly any decision, of course, will have to weigh economic and geopolitical risks as well. We'll have to wait and see until how it unfolds. But we'll have to leave our discussion right here as of now. Professor Kim and Professor Song, thank you so much for your time and your insights tonight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
My pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.